What has happened to Cole Palmer? Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. As you can see, I've moved away from my usual studio setup because my office is upstairs and it is roasting up there. I'm literally melting. A little bit like Cole Palmer's career, you might say. No, absolutely not. And that is what I am here in this video to talk about. So all of us know, but Chelsea fans especially, that Cole Palmer has not exactly been the guy that we've come to know and love over the last few months. And in this video, I want to break down a little bit of how we came to get to that point in the first place and maybe why he's suffering a little bit now. Truth be told, I was inspired to make this video because I made a rash comment on a YouTube thread about Cole Palmer. I was watching the latest upload from Football Therapy, who is an absolutely excellent Chelsea YouTuber. Chances are, if you're watching me, you probably already know him, but if you don't, go and check out his channel. He just uploaded a video about what Chelsea's new formation might be next year with all of our new players coming in, and I decided, in my infinite wisdom, to make a rash comment about Cole Palmer. I basically just said, as long as Cole Palmer's not in that left channel, then I'm game for whatever. And a few fans in the comments were really quick to come and tell me that, in fact, Cole Palmer did perform really well in that position. Now, I actually watched the Benfica game, and I think it's probably not necessarily that I didn't see him do well, but I'm so biased towards the superstar Cole Palmer that we all know and love that I've become short-sighted, and I'm unfortunately just expecting him to get exactly back to that without really appreciating the steps he needs to take to get there. So if you happen to be one of the guys that called me out in that comment thread, thanks very much. I needed to give my head a shake, and you were absolutely right. Cole Palmer did play well in that game, even if it's not the absolute world beater Cole Palmer that we all know and love and really want to get back to. So Cole Palmer's career has been a really interesting one. His rise from relative unknown to coming off the bench and doing bits for Man City to spending an entire season as an absolute world beater has been phenomenal, and the rise has happened so fast. And it's not even just about how fast it's happened. The type of player that Cole Palmer is really interesting as well. I actually love what Rory Jennings had to say about him. He's like a throwback 70s footballer. He's not all about athleticism and running up and down the pitch. He's all about skill, technique and flair and making things special happen. And we haven't really had too many players like that in the squad since Eden Hazard, right? So as I mentioned before, Cole Palmer's rise started with coming off the bench for Man City. He'd been at their academy for a really long time, since he was really young, and that was when the world started to take note. In his last full season for City, he made 18 appearances off the bench and scored like 3 goals, which for a young unknown academy player is good. City fans were really starting to get excited about him, but the world hadn't quite caught on just yet. The following summer, Chelsea went through one of our now very usual clear out and restock summers where we got rid of loads of players that we didn't want anymore and took loads of gambles on loads of players that no one had ever heard of. One of those players was Cole Palmer. We had actually missed out on a couple of targets. So the optics of the initial Cole Palmer purchase were a little bit like, oh, is this reactionary? Is this a panic buy? Are they just getting someone because we've been turned down and they need to placate the fans? But obviously, with Joe Shields in tow and him having a massive part to do with a lot of these Man City youngsters that we're bringing into the team, there was obviously more to it than that. A lot of us weren't really sure what was going to happen and what we could even expect from a very young Cole Palmer. To mention him again, I actually remember watching Rory Jennings on the club, and he said at the time, he was like, and what, we've bought Cole Palmer, some young lad, and you know, what can we expect from him? And to be fair, it was 100% right. No one had any idea what was just about to happen. We just got on Pochettino and we got him through pre-season with the likes of Nkunku looking phenomenal, and we were all really excited about what this new look team could do with Cole Palmer on the bench. Now, unfortunately, Nkunku was injured just before the season start and he was out for a long time. That was a bit like, oh no, what are we going to do? And Cole Palmer didn't go straight into the mix either. He spent some time on the bench and his first few appearances were as a sub, with his first few goals being coming from the penalty spot. And that was enough to make Pochettino take notice, because he'd played quite well in these games, and even though the goals were only penalties, he took them with such a calmness and self-assuredness. It kind of spoke of a player with a footballing maturity that reached beyond his age. So Cole Palmer worked his way from the bench to the starting lineup within the first few months of the season, and we never looked back. He caught fire, much like I am right now, actually, and the goals started coming thick and fast. My personal favourite was the goal against Everton. If you know, you know. And that was it. We bought this relative unknown. He'd come for us with very little in the way of expectation, and quickly, very easily become not only one of the best players on our team, but one of the best players in the league. Under Pochettino, Cole Palmer was afforded a lot of freedom. And there's something to be said about that in Pochettino style in general. So there was a really interesting quote that came out from Moises Caicedo just after Pochettino had mutually agreed to terminate his contract with Chelsea. And Caicedo came out and said, it's actually been pretty weird playing under Pochettino because with Roberto De Zerbi at Brighton, where he was last when he did really, really well, it was all tactics. But under Pochettino, it's very much run. Now, I'm not saying that Pochettino had no tactical input in the team at all. Of course he did. One game-changing one coming later in the season being his decision to get Cucurella to start playing that inverted midfield role, which set us on the path to that streak of 6 wins we got that allowed us to just clutch 6th place in the Premier League that season. But yeah, compared to like Pep Guardiola, where he'd just come from, or an Enzo Maresca, who he's with now, I think it's fair to say the coaching style was very different, and Cole Palmer was afforded the ability and opportunity and decision-making responsibility to decide whether he wanted to be a playmaker or be a goal scorer, or how he wanted to play the game and how he wanted to connect the team together. So much so, in fact, that before long you could actually see he was starting to get a little bit annoyed by the rest of his players. This was the season where Nicholas Jackson missed the most big chances out of anyone in the league, and there was a game I remember, I can't remember exactly who it was against, maybe it was Everton, but there was a game where Cole Palmer had already scored once or maybe twice, and we got a penalty, and then an iconic moment happened. Everyone remembers Madueke and Jackson petulantly arguing over who was going to take that penalty. I think Madueke was holding the ball, and then Jackson walked up to him and tried to snatch it off him, and then they started arguing in the middle of the pitch in a game we were winning, by the way. And Cole Palmer was just stood on the side looking chill as you like. That's why he's called Cole Palmer. But yeah, after like 30 seconds to a minute of this absolutely outrageous petulant arguing, Palmer had had enough. He walked up to both of them, took the ball, put it on the centre spot, kicked it, and it went in the goal. And that was when he kind of announced himself, not just as an excellent goal scorer, but as an example for young players to follow. Don't let the moment get the better of you. Put the performance first and let the adulation and glory come afterwards. Initially, he was obviously happy for someone else to take that penalty. Maybe not quite as iconic, but another moment I remember about Cole Palmer as well was he scored a couple of goals in a game. This was still under the Pochettino season, and we were struggling. I'm pretty sure the team had just equalised, and this moment lives rent-free in my head. The image of Cole Palmer saying, now there was no audio to it, but you could read his lips, man. It was very easy to figure out what he was saying. After scoring a goal, he said, "Come on, guys, I can't do this all by myself." And it's like, wow, what a, taking the responsibility of the entire team on your shoulders to the point where he was like 21 at this point as well. And that burden was starting to get to him. So Cole Palmer had arrived. Everyone was talking about him. What I like about him is in a few of his interviews, he tries to stay very level-headed and keep grounded and not get caught up in it all. He said, oh yeah, no, I'll watch a couple of the highlight reels and sometimes when they come up on my TikTok feed. But come on, it's impossible to escape the noise when you're Cole Palmer and the entire world is talking about you non-stop. And it's easy to be good at what you're doing when you're feeling good, right? That's not just about football, that's just about anything. Think about any job or project you've ever had. When were you at your absolute best at that job? It was probably when things were going well for you. You might have had to overcome something to get there, but when everything in your life is going well, or even at your job, for instance, when you feel appreciated by the people you work for and you're getting good results, it is easier to perform. I feel exactly the same way about football. Footballers are going to play their best football when they're feeling good. And Cole Palmer was feeling good because he just kept going. And you got to think, for a 22-year-old to come from relative obscurity from a Man City academy team, find himself competing with Erling Haaland for the Golden Boot halfway through the season, and to be like 2nd or 3rd top scorer in the entire league, fighting it out with Mo Salah and the aforementioned Haaland, to finish that season as the Premier League's Young Player of the Year, and then get your first England call-up in a Euros competition. And that was crazy as well, wasn't it? Phil Foden was playing every single game on the left-hand side, and it just wasn't working. We had that weird Phil Foden, Trippier left-hand side thing going, and I remember the pundits and on social media, everyone was saying, why is Cole Palmer not getting a shot? This is madness. And you know what? When Cole Palmer did get a shot, he got an assist in his first game and he scored the only goal for England in the final that we played against Spain in the Euros, which ultimately we ended up losing. But again, Cole Palmer taking that responsibility of the country on his back. It was madness. So he comes out of that season and he is the talk of the town. Everyone is talking about Cole Palmer, and he also signed an extension on an already very long deal to double his wages and keep him at the club for nearly a decade. And that is when things started to change. So the first obvious change, right, was the manager. As I said, allegedly, Pochettino and Chelsea parted on mutual terms. I kind of believe that, to be honest. Pochettino only got a 2-year deal. Graham Potter got a 7-year deal, and Enzo Maresca has gotten a 5-year deal. So clearly, Blueco are looking for a long-term manager, and they didn't see Pochettino as that, but he was a good stopgap while they were looking for the right guy. Now, a lot of the talk, as I mentioned before, was about Cole Palmer playing really well because he'd been afforded so much freedom. And with Enzo Maresca coming in for the just-departed Pochettino, a lot of people were concerned that Cole Palmer wasn't going to be able to perform as well in an ultimately more rigid, positional play-based, tactics-driven setup. But there is some sort of counter to that, isn't there? Because he initially arrived on the big stage in a Pep Guardiola side. Pep Guardiola wasn't looking at Cole Palmer and going, go out there and do what you want. He will have had rigid tactical instructions and will have had to have played in a very, very certain way, because that is what Guardiola does. That is what all of the disciples of Guardiola do. And Enzo Maresca is no exception. So while I understand maybe we weren't going to see the same free-flowing, free-scoring Cole Palmer that we'd seen already, you know, getting 20 plus goals in a season, I didn't exactly jump on the idea that he was going to be absolutely terrible because of the change of style. And initially, that looked to be the case, didn't it? Cole Palmer for Enzo Maresca scored 14 goals in 20 games. 4 of those coming in 30 minutes in the first half against Brighton, which had never happened before. So for a long time, it was looking like Cole Palmer had just kicked on from where he left off. And then December came. In Cole Palmer's rise from Man City Academy graduate to Chelsea first teamer to nearly being England's Euro hero, he'd never missed a beat, never missed a step. He just kept going and performing the way you expected him to. So when eventually that first dry spell came around, we were all very, very surprised. I'm going to pause the video just for a second, guys. If you are enjoying the content and want to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, or subscribing to my channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Every single click that you guys do means the world to me. It is feeding the algorithm and telling people that the Stamford Sink is here to stay, and it is helping me get out to a wider audience. In the last few days, I've seen my subscriber base nearly double, and I've only been at this for a month. So if you're one of those guys, thank you so much. And if you're not one of those guys, that's okay, but join the fun, get involved. Nice one, guys. I'll get back on with the video now. And so the mighty began to fall. Now, basically, what I'm just about to get into is the fact that Cole Palmer had essentially a 3-month dry spell. Although things are looking better, it doesn't look like he's completely come out of it yet. So let's speculate as to the reasons why. So I think there's 2 main reasons. And the first thing is something that I don't necessarily think we forget about, but I think it's something that some of us do struggle to understand and empathise with sometimes. Footballers are human beings. Now, for the most of us, we're not on thousands every week. We live in our expensive houses with our expensive heating and our expensive food, and things like football are just another expense that comes out of what is a really struggling situation for most people in the country at the moment. And I think it's very easy to sit there and go, he's earning 120 grand a week. I wouldn't have these kind of problems if I was earning that much money. I'd just go out and do it. That's just not how it works, is it? Now, I'm not accusing anyone watching this video of being like that, but come on, we've all seen football social media. We've all seen how people can be when players aren't doing very well. And I said before, didn't I? I was literally inspired to make this video because of a flippant comment that I made on a YouTube thread that required further thought and more nuance than I gave it at the time. So you got to think, coming from being England's young football darling and everything about you being highlight reels of all your most amazing moments, people sharing your interviews and talking about what a down-to-earth and chilled out guy that you are, to then all of a sudden hearing things like Cole Palmer's mid, championship player, what's he even doing? And there's so many more things like that, and they were just, it's savage, man, isn't it? It's absolutely savage. Now, Cole Palmer has come out and said a few times, I just tried to ignore all the noise and people can be stupid, and he's right. Even me, as a Chelsea YouTuber who absolutely loves Cole Palmer, something came over me earlier where I was like, I'm going to say something negative about Cole Palmer in this video. And that's not to say you shouldn't call out negativity where you see it, but I think it is to say that if we are going to be negative, let's take a real sample size and be a bit more analytical before we do so. And it must have been hard, man. It must have been hard, like, to go from, like I say, being this absolute wonder kid, then to all of a sudden still being on everyone's lips, but for only negative stuff and people putting you down and making you feel like you're not good enough. He's a 22-year-old kid who's really, really good at football, but the boy's still got a heart, do you know what I mean? So I do think a big part of what he's going through is a mental block, and I think that probably hasn't been helped by not the lack of love as much as having to learn how to deal with the wave of negativity, right? It must be so hard being a footballer, man. I understand they are compensated very, very well for their time. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, I get that. At the same time, you've got to think no one likes it when people say nasty things about them, and getting paid loads of money doesn't make you immune to that. So while I don't think that's the only thing that went on, I think that in the first few months where he went through that dry spell, I think that probably played a big part of it. Because from the eye test, Cole Palmer doesn't seem to... Now, I don't mean this in a bad way. I actually mean this in a really good way. Cole Palmer doesn't seem to think a lot when he plays his best football. It is reactive. It is instinctive. It feels like it just comes to him and he does it, and most of the time it works. And what we were starting to see is Cole Palmer taking that extra split second to make a decision. And that just says to me that the guy was stuck inside his own head. I think that is a little bit of where we still are with Cole Palmer right now. I think it was, like I said, it's easy to do things when things are going well. You know, if he can get back to that free-flowing, not overthinking kind of footballer, that is kind of when he played his best stuff. But that also plays into the next thing that I do think has had some sort of effect on it, and that's the tactics. So yes, he did well under Pep in those brief cameo appearances, and then went to being a free-flowing footballer that was allowed to do whatever he wanted for an entire season and was really, really successful that way. To make that change to going back to playing in a bit more of a rigid structure where you're being told where to be and what decisions you should and shouldn't be making in certain situations, it's quite do you know what I mean? It's a bit of a back and forth, a bit of a rough and tumble. It's not just going to be easy to chip. I mean, the best players can do it, absolutely, you know, of course, but the best players with experience of playing under different managers and understanding the different demands of different managers and being able to change the way you play and your mentality to fit that, it's just not a given, is it? So obviously the first half of the season does tell us that Cole Palmer can perform really well in a Maresca team. He scored 14 goals in 20 games, and that is outrageous. But with the team still in flux and still changing, it's probably getting harder for him to find his spot, right? Because you've got to think, look at the left wing situation. Mikhailo Mudryk, banned. Jadon Sancho did play a reasonable amount, but was never really conducive to excellent connective football. And now what we're seeing, and this is what my comment was about, is Cole Palmer being tried out there in that position. Now, I'm not saying he'd be like, oh, I shouldn't be playing here, but you've got to think, he's thinking to himself, I play my best football when I'm in the middle, or at least when I'm out on the right-hand side. So no, I definitely wasn't analytical enough about my assessment of Cole Palmer in that game. He did actually have a good game. I guess my issue is I am so desperate to see him get back to where he was, and I am a little bit biased maybe because anytime I've seen him do that well, it's never been from that side. And also in my head I'm thinking we've got Jamie Gittins coming in, and obviously just after that we announced João Pedro as well, didn't we? So I'm thinking, that left spot is full now. So I shouldn't be defending my comment too much because it was a rash comment to make, but you know, I wasn't saying Cole Palmer's rubbish. I was just kind of saying I don't really want to see him in that spot, but it's not that he played bad there, it's just that I think he can do much better somewhere else. And again, you got to think, with all these players coming in again, yeah, there is definitely a shot in the dark that maybe Jamie Gittins and João Pedro and Liam Delap are exactly what he's been missing. Players that he can connect with, form new bonds and relationships with, someone he can trust a bit more than Nicholas Jackson to put those chances away. But yeah, with the rest of the team changing again, like I say, while that might work out really well, what there is initially is, again, everything's changed. So do I think Cole Palmer is washed? No, absolutely not. I am not convinced that we're going to see the same Cole Palmer that we saw in the Pochettino season as long as Maresca is our manager. And that is because I don't necessarily think there's room in Maresca's thinking for that free-flowing, decision-making footballer who can just take control of the game, take it by the scruff of the neck and do whatever he wants. So I do think it's likely that Cole Palmer's numbers output will be limited because of that. I've got no idea how long it's going to take him to get out of this mental block that he seems to be going through, but we've got to give him the time. He's on a 9-year deal, so he's not going anywhere. The ball is firmly in Blue Coast Court when it comes to the future of Cole Palmer. And I desperately want to see him get back to it, not just for Chelsea, but to get back into that England team. So I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. This has just been my thoughts about the Cole Palmer situation. I do think he'll be back in some capacity, but what capacity that is remains to be seen. So nice one, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Cole Palmer situation. Do you think he's washed? Do you think he's a sleeping giant? Or do you think the Cole Palmer we've got right now is the Cole Palmer that we're likely to have? Maybe not someone who contributes all of these numbers all the time, but is conducive to good connective team play and making things happen. Thanks for sticking around for the video. I hope you guys are having a wicked day and enjoying the sun more than I am. I am melting. As soon as it gets a bit cooler, I'll be back in my normal studio and I can't wait to see you guys soon. Take it easy. Peace.